love that song.
So
Leanne Womack,
Leanne
right?
Womack, she's really good.
I've heard that
Awesome. Thank
and
you
love
so
it.
much.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. So glad to see everyone here. You know, one day a little girl is sitting and watching her mother do the dishes at the kitchen sink, and she suddenly notices that her mother has several strands of white hair sticking out in her brunette hair. She looks at her mother inquisitively, asks, "Mom, why are some of your hairs white?" Her mother replied, "Well, every time that you do something wrong, make me cry, or unhappy, one of my hairs turns white." Well, the little girl thought about it and about this revelation and for a little while, and then she asked, "Mama, how come all of grandmother's hairs are white?" You know, last Sunday, we started a series of talks that are based on Robert Brummett's book, The Quest for Wholeness, Healing Ourselves, Healing Our World. You know, it's a beautifully written book. It's all about the path to wholeness. And it's an excellent guide for discovering your true nature, your soul, and healing all aspects of your human life. So I'm going to be doing a talk based on each chapter in the book over the next several months. They all won't be in a row, but we will be looking through the whole book. And most of the chapters are really meaty. And so in truth, I mean, I could do several talks on each chapter, and I hope I don't try to cram in more than I need to for each talk. But they're meaty chapters, and I think you will would enjoy the book. So to get the most out of this series of talks, I do highly recommend that you purchase the book and use it as the excellent guidebook that it is as we embark on this quest for wholeness and spiritual healing. So at the end of each chapter, Brummett lists some thoughts and questions to meditate on. He gives some affirmations and lists some activities. So it's actually a workbook also to help you get deeper and into this understanding of wholeness. So in our newsletter this past week, we did put a link in it that you can just click on. It'll take you to where you can purchase the book either in print or for Kindle. You know, he really is an excellent writer, and this is a great way to introduce you to him as an author. As I noted last week, I've had the pleasure of knowing Robert since 2008 when I began my work on my Master's of Divinity degree at Unity Institute. Robert is Unity's best-known Christaboo, and which is his tongue-in-cheek term for Christians with Buddhist inclinations, a Christaboo. So Robert became one of my favorite instructors. He was the one that was teaching psychology, prayer and meditation, spiritual counseling, and pastoral care, to just name a few. He taught me the Enneagram also. Anyway, I was also very fortunate to have him as my spiritual director. So we have begun, this is the second one, but we have begun our quest for wholeness. And a quest is a journey that requires inquiry, investigation, and exploration, which we're going to be doing together for the next few months through this series of talks. You know, as Brummett points out, most journeys have a destination, and our destination is wholeness. But what is wholeness? How do we find it? And is wholeness really a destination, or is it to be found within the journey itself? Brummett writes, wholeness can mean different things to different people. To someone who is sick or injured, wholeness could refer to the restoration of physical health. To someone that's anxious, depressed and mentally upset, wholeness might mean peace of mind, happiness, or joy. If someone is experiencing relationship problems, wholeness could mean love and harmony in relationships. If someone is in poverty, wholeness can mean prosperity. I think it is easy to see that one's vision of wholeness may depend upon one's personal need. So as Brummett points out, some would say that we are always whole, no matter what our condition or experience. They say that wholeness is our true nature and that we can never be otherwise. While this is true in the spiritual dimension of our being, is it true in every dimension? We may always be spiritually whole, but it's not apparent that we are always physically or mentally whole. Our society and our planet do not appear to be in a state of wholeness. Brummett tells us that wholeness does not have a particular form. We cannot judge wholeness from looking outside, looking in. We can know wholeness only through our personal experience. Wholeness is the natural result of living a spirit-centered life. It is the natural result of living consciously from the authentic core of our being. He says, in the state of wholeness, we see all things from the perspective of our true nature. Just as all the planets orbit around the sun, so everything in our lives revolves around our true identity. This is the state of wholeness. Again, Brummett believes we can fully know wholeness only through our experience of it. And that wholeness can be expressed in an infinite number of ways. While our hearts may know the true meaning of wholeness, our minds want images and words to describe that inner experience. So Brummett uses words to describe various aspects or elements of wholeness, with each word being sort of like a finger pointing to the same basic experience. So today we're going to look at 4 different words: self-awareness, balance, integration, and self-actualization. Brummett said that these words are both descriptors of the state of wholeness and prerequisites to attaining wholeness itself. Through diligent application, they can lead us to wholeness. They describe both the journey and the destination, both the means and the result of our quest for wholeness. So the first word pointing to wholeness is self-awareness. Over 500 years before Jesus was born, the Greek philosopher Pythagoras said, before we can know God, we must first know ourselves. Before we can know God, we must first know ourselves. You've heard me say this before, but I really believe that the bedrock of the whole Greek civilization was this one statement: know thyself. Know thyself. You can find this one statement being repeated over and over and over in the writings of the great Greek philosophers: Pythagoras, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. In his book, Talks on Truth, Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore wrote, "Know thyself. Know who and what you are, where you came from, what you are doing here, and where you are going. If you want to know all of this," he says, "meditate on I am." For Brummett, self-awareness is an essential element in the quest for wholeness. He says we cannot experience a mature wholeness without it. He says an infant or young child may be whole, but that wholeness has not yet matured into a functional wholeness capable of fully expressing itself in the world. So self-awareness may never be complete because there are infinite facets and infinite depths to our nature. Self-awareness is a never-ending journey. While the average person would probably say they know who they are, Bermond says when it comes to self-awareness, most of us don't know what we don't know. Paradoxically, the best way to begin the journey of self-awareness is to assume that we know nothing about ourselves. In this way, our minds are open and unprejudiced. Here at Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor, one of our core values is open-mindedness. In Zen Buddhism, this attitude is sometimes referred to as beginner's mind. For Brumman, we cannot overstate the importance of self-awareness in the quest for wholeness. He points out that in ordinary awareness, we perceive everything through a set of filters. These filters are the results of our conditioning, belief systems, and self-image. We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. True self-awareness is being able to know ourselves beyond the filters that color our perception of ourselves and everyone else. Brumman also points out that our awareness is usually commingled with our reactions to what we experience. The mind is constantly judging, evaluating, analyzing virtually every experience that we have. Much of what we call our life experiences are not the result of what is actually experienced, but our mind's reactions to what we have experienced. Once again, we see things not as they are, but as we are. For Brumman, it is important for us to understand that self-awareness comes from self-observation. Self-observation is closely observing oneself, our thoughts, our feelings, our desires, our words, and our actions, without any judgment, without any analysis or attempt to change. While not so easy, Brumman says it is a skill that we can acquire and develop with practice. For Brumman, self-observation is a form of meditation, which is also an essential ingredient in the development of self-awareness. So self-observation brings us a deeper awareness of our human nature, while meditation brings a deeper awareness of our spiritual nature. Brumman says with self-awareness, we observe the content of the mind, and in meditation, we experience not only the content, but also the context from which all content arises. So both of these practices, self-observation and meditation, are vital to the development of self-awareness. Our second word is balance. Brumman says wholeness implies a balance of our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual natures. We must honor all aspects of ourselves to be whole. If we ignore any aspect of our nature, we are out of balance and no longer whole. We may even be out of balance and not even know about it. Brumman points out that in our culture, most of us overfunction mentally and underfunction physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Our culture favors thinking over feeling and doing over being. This has become our cultural norm. Most of us don't even know that we are out of balance. We have substituted normal for natural. Brumman says a perfect example of this is the idea with the food we eat. You know, most normal food is not natural. Normal and natural have become two very different things. To live normally in our culture usually means to live in an unnatural way. And sometimes living naturally requires living outside of the cultural norms. Brummett tells us perhaps a certain amount of this is inevitable in our fast-paced technological society. Temporarily being out of balance is not necessarily problematic. For example, when we ride a bicycle, we are often out of balance, but yet we're constantly correcting the imbalance as we drive or ride alone. But when we accept being out of balance as normal, then we have problems. For Brummett, a healthy body is a body that is in balance. A healthy mind is a mind that is in balance. A healthy lifestyle is one in which body, mind, and spirit are in balance. Balance in our lives includes balancing time alone and time with others, balancing work and play, balancing rest and activity. A healthful lifestyle means balancing our spiritual practice with our secular life. And too much energy in one area to the detriment of another can create an imbalance and a lack of wholeness. So our third word pointing to wholeness is integration. This word is derived from the Latin integratus, which means to make whole. As Brummett points out, to be whole is to be in integrity with oneself, and the word integrity in turn means the quality or state of being complete, unbroken, an unbroken condition, wholeness. And again, this word also is derived from the Latin ingritas, which means untouched. To be whole is to be integrated, to be in integrity, to have our essential natures untouched and undefiled. For Brummett, wholeness means that we are not fractured, fragmented, or internally conflicted. A healthy body is one that is in harmony with itself, and a healthy mind is one that is not in conflict with itself. Healthful relationships are not inherently conflicting. And a healthy person is one whose body, mind, and spirit are in harmony. Brummett says to be in integrity is to be authentic, congruent, and genuine. To be integrity with ourselves is to be in integrity with others and with our environment. When we are out of integrity, we lack wholeness, and we may become ill and conflicted with ourselves, others, and our world. Our next word, our fourth word, is self-actualization. And this is pointing to wholeness. And it was a word that was coined by the psychologist Abraham Maslow. He says to be whole is to be self-actualized, to be fully functioning as a human spiritual being. Maslow, unlike other psychologists, directed their attention toward, most psychologists directed their attention toward neurotic and mentally ill people. But Maslow, he focused his attention on mentally healthy people. In his research, he found a population of individuals who are not just normal and healthy, but super healthy. These people were as different from normal people as were the mentally ill. Only they were in the opposite direction, of the opposite spectrum. Brummett writes, Maslow saw that these folks are different from most people. They march to the tune of a different drummer. He found that they have very different motivations and values than other people. One characteristic he found was that these people tend to live life from the inside out. Most normal people adopt the goals, the values, and the standards that are given to them by their culture. Values that they learn from their parents, their relatives, their teachers, and other authority figures in their lives. So most people are motivated primarily by external goals, standards, and behaviors. By contrast, self-actualized people have an internal source for their values, their standards, and behavior. Their sense of identity, their morality, their motivation seem to arise from within themselves and often contradict the social norms. Another characteristic of this group of self-actualized people is a high degree of openness to new experiences. Maslow found that most people are open to new experiences only when forced to let go of familiar ways of being. Most people will find a certain comfort zone and live within that zone until they're forced to find a new way. Self-actualized people seem much more willing to leave their comfort zones to experiment with new ideas and activities. They are much more willing to live on the edge of the unknown. Other characteristics of self-actualizers include being highly creative and exhibiting a high degree of resilience and flexibility and strong desires for some form of self-expression. Other characteristics of self-actualizers include being highly creative, exhibiting a high degree, like I say, of resilience and flexibility. Maslow found that most normal people have strong desires, but most of their desires arise from a perceived deficiency within themselves. Brummett says that most people have desires for safety and security, for love and belonging, for recognition and approval. These desires are directed primarily toward getting something from someone else in order to fulfill some perceived inner emptiness. On the other hand, the desires of self-actualizers are oriented toward self-expression, more toward self-expression than toward need fulfillment. And instead of being like an empty cup looking to be filled, they're more like an overflowing cup needing to share with others. In relationships, self-actualizers seem much more interested in giving than receiving. And Maslow saw that most people love from a sense of deficiency. The object of their love is seen as a fulfillment of something missing within them. On the other hand, self-actualizers love simply because that is a natural part of their being. They love out of a desire to share themselves with others rather than a need to get something from someone else. Brummett writes, to be whole is to be self-actualizing. It is to be moving in the direction of greater self-responsibility, greater self-expression, greater self-awareness, and more unconditional love. To be whole is to become all that we are capable of becoming and know that the capability itself is constantly expanding. Wholeness isn't fixed. It's not static. It's open-ended, it's dynamic, it's ever-expanding. So Brummett tells us that wholeness is a paradox. Wholeness is the object of our quest, and yet it is our birthright. Spiritually, we can never be other than whole, for we are created in the image and the likeness of God. Why then must we quest for that which we already have? Brummett says perhaps it's because we've forgotten our wholeness, and in this forgetting it may have just disappeared from our sight. Remembering our wholeness brings it forth into manifestation. Brummett speculates that we have buried the memory of our wholeness under many years and perhaps many lifetimes of our memories that tell us that we are not whole. We have hidden our wholeness in the belief that hiding it is the only way we can survive. Or perhaps, as Marianne Williamson points out, it's because we are afraid. As Marianne Williamson said, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. This is a true story told by Jack Canfield in his book, Chicken Soup for the Soul. And it's a wonderful metaphor for how all of this is happening. Back in 1957, a group of monks from a monastery had to relocate a clay Buddha from a temple to a new location. The monastery was to be relocated to make room for the development of a highway through Bangkok. When the crane began to lift the giant idol, the weight of it was so tremendous that it began to crack. Also, rain began to fall. So the head monk, who was concerned about damage to the sacred Buddha, decided to lower the statue back to the ground and cover it with a large canvas tarp to protect it from the rain. Later that evening, the head monk went to check on the Buddha. He shined his flashlight under the tarp to see if the Buddha was staying dry. And as the light reached the crack, he noticed a little gleam of light. He wondered if there might be something underneath the clay. He went to fetch a chisel and hammer from the monastery and began to chip away at the clay. As he knocked off shards of clay, the little gleam grew brighter and bigger. Many hours of labor went by before the monk stood face to face with an extraordinary, solid, golden Buddha. Historians believe that several hundred years before the head monk's discovery, the Burmese army was about to invade Thailand, which was called Siam at that time. And the Siamese monks, realizing that their country would soon be attacked, covered their precious golden Buddha with clay, with an outer coating of clay to keep the treasure from being looted by the Burmese. So unfortunately, it appears that the Burmese slaughtered all the Siamese monks, and the well-kept secret of the golden Buddha remained intact until that fateful day in 1957. Before I lead us in a meditation, I want to close today's talk with Brummett's commentary on that story. He says, like the monks, we hid our gold so that it could survive. In a sense, our work is to be like that of the monks, chipping away at the clay covering, curiously searching for the undiscovered treasure within. If we persevere, we will discover the golden essence that is our true nature. Yet, this metaphor doesn't tell the whole story. Our wholeness is not a static, inert substance passively awaiting our discovery. It's a living, organic essence. The memory of our wholeness often grows and unfolds like a flower. It grows and unfolds because it is a vital, living force, constantly seeking to find its way through the many layers of fear and ignorance. And like the flower, the very soil that buries it also nurtures it. Our wholeness grows from the soil of our own life experiences. In our quest for wholeness, we may have to do some digging and chipping to scrape away the false identity covering our essence. At other times, We must patiently allow the flower of our wholeness to grow and blossom in its own time. The quest is at times an active process and at times a quiet period of waiting. We need to change. We need the courage to chisel, the patience to wait, and the wisdom to know which to do next. Let us prepare for our meditation. I do invite you to sing along if you'd like, as we just begin to enter into the quiet.
We are held in the hands of grace, forever safe in the arms of love. Like a child receives protection from a mother's warm embrace, we are held in the hands of grace. You are held in the hands of grace, forever safe in the arms of love. Like a child receives protection from a mother's warm embrace, you are held in the hands of grace.
So I do invite you now to just relax in your seat. Become very comfortable and sit upright. Just relax. Take a couple of deep breaths. And with every breath, just relax a little bit more deeply. We still our bodies and we still our minds. And if any thoughts come into our heads about things going on later or something that went on before, we just note it and let it go. We do not need to grab hold of any thought as we just allow ourselves to be fully present right here, right now. And we open our hearts and we open our minds to that beautiful spiritual being that we are at the very core of our being. We open up to the truth of who we are. One with Spirit, one with each other, and one with all of life. So we just allow ourselves to rest for a little while. We're going to rest in the silence, being fully open, fully receptive to the guidance that is right here, right now for us. Fully open and receptive to that truth that dwells within us. So let us rest just in the silence for just a little bit. So as we allow ourselves to bring our attention back to this present moment, we allow ourselves to feel a sense of gratitude, just knowing that we are one with each other, that we are one with Spirit, that we are one with all of life, that our reality, that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And as we continue throughout this week and continue in our practice of meditation, and each time we go into the silence, we are more and more aware of that truth, of our own divinity, created in the image and likeness. So let's take one more deep breath. And just think of something that you're really grateful for right now. One thing that you're grateful for. And let's just take that with us this week as we go out. And so it is. Amen.
All of our classes, programs, and services are made possible by your generous donations. Our heartfelt thanks for your contribution and support. We've created many easy ways to donate, which we can find on our website.
And we do have a love offering. For those of you here, we have a love offering box right up here at the entry from the foyer. And again, you make this all happen and make it possible by your generous donations. And we are so very grateful for your support. Thank you.
We invite you now to stand up and let's open our hearts and minds in gratitude as we close by speaking out loud or silently to ourselves our love offering prayer, followed by the peace song and closing with a prayer of protection. Divine love,
in me and through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment, live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. The light of God surrounds us.
I am light.
The love of God enfolds us.
I am love.
The power of God protects us.
I am power.
And the presence of God watches over us.
I am presence.
And wherever we are, God is.
I am divine.
And my friends, you truly are. Thanks for being here.
Thank
and
you, everybody.
please
Have a wonderful
join us
day.
upstairs for cake and other things.